Hey guys, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. In one of my last videos, I discussed the origins of dementors and the story of a dark and evil wizard named Ekrizdis. But in that same video, I also scratched the surface of another story, the story of an evil wizard known as Raczidian. Raczidian was a dark wizard who was said to have existed during an unknown period in time. It's only referred to as ancient. There is a case for the argument that Raczidian is the father of dementors, as he may have existed before Ekrizdis, and in the ancient tales that speak of him, dementors are mentioned. He was a very talented dark wizard who was fully immersed in the dark arts, able to produce all sorts of evil concoctions and cast all sorts of sinister spells. But one thing that he always had trouble with was what we now know to be the Patronus charm. A Patronus charm is produced when a witch or wizard casts the spell Expecto Patronum. There are two types of Patronus charms, corporeal and incorporeal, and the type that the witch or wizard casts will depend on their experience or preference. The more basic form of the spell is the incorporeal Patronus, which assumes no animal form and simply resembles a burst of white vapor or smoke. And the more advanced form of the spell is the conjuring of a corporeal Patronus. The ability to successfully cast a corporeal Patronus is considered a very impressive feat in the wizarding community. The corporeal Patronus assumes the form of the witch or wizard's spirit animal and varies extensively from witch to witch or wizard to wizard. Harry's is a stag, Hermione's is an otter, etc. It's also worth mentioning that there's no way to know what your Patronus is until you cast it. Professor Catalyst Spangle explains this. No reliable system for predicting the form of an individual's Patronus has ever been found. However, it's also been expressed that a Patronus can change. The form of a Patronus may change during the course of a witch or wizard's life. Instances have been known of the form of the Patronus transforming due to bereavement, falling in love, or profound shifts in a person's character. While casting spells that create your very own spirit animal is impressive, there is a purpose, and that purpose is to ward off dementors or letherfolds, dark creatures that feed on human happiness and incite a feeling of despair in anyone that gets close to them. They are among the foulest creatures around and represent nothing but darkness, depression, and decay. They are also notably difficult to get rid of, and the only known way that it can be done is with a Patronus. This is because the Patronus represents everything that a dementor doesn't: hope, happiness, survival, and purity. As the Patronus itself does not feel despair or hopelessness as a human might, the dementors can't hurt it and are repelled by its presence. But you might now be asking, if Raczidian commanded dementors, then why would he need to cast a Patronus charm? To dig into this further, we need to look at the story of Ilias, a young orphan wizard who saved his village from the dark wizard Raczidian. Ilias came from a small wizarding village in the mountains, and Raczidian lived in a black castle in a nearby forest, guarded entirely by dementors. Knowing that dementors roamed the forest, the villagers took care to teach every new generation the Patronus charm, the only spell that worked against these evil creatures. Many were unable to master the difficult spell, but there had always been just enough Patronuses in the village to stand guard against the dementors, in case Raczidian ordered an attack. When Ilias turned 17, the village elders taught him and his fellow young wizards the spell. Ilias, who was shy and tongue-tied, succeeded in producing a Patronus, but to his shame, it took the form of a mouse. Everyone roared with laughter because they had never seen such a small, weak Patronus, and the elders advised the boy never to use the spell again. The townspeople had a fairly harmonious relationship with Raczidian. They didn't quite get along with him or fraternize with him, but they left each other alone. However, that all began to change when Raczidian saw a girl from the village named Eliana. Raczidian took notice of Eliana, a beautiful young girl who lived in the village, who Ilias had never spoken to due to his shyness. While she was out picking berries in the forest, deciding that she would make an ideal wife, Raczidian sent a demand to her parents, but they refused to consent to the marriage. Raczidian then threatened to send his dementors to destroy the village unless they delivered Eliana to him. The village elders had a meeting and agreed to put up a fight. Eliana was sent to Ilias's tiny shack, and Ilias was ordered to sit out the battle and keep her company, as his Patronus was thought to be too weak to be of any use. At first, the villagers managed to hold back the torrent of dementors that attacked the village with their Patronuses, which included bears, wolves, and wild boars. But gradually, the sheer number of foes began to overwhelm them. The Patronuses grew faint, and the spellcasters collapsed, or fled for their lives. Eliana begged Ilias to do something, so he cast the Patronus charm, and despite its diminutive size, the mouse shone with a brilliant light, bringing the dementors to a halt as it nimbly moved through the ranks of fleeing villagers. Ilias, who was thought previously unimpressive due to his Patronus's animal form of a mouse, suddenly became the town's saving grace. However, when Raczidian saw that his dementors were being bested, he decided to take things into his own hands. Enraged, Raczidian decided to enter the fray himself, and tried to summon a Patronus to ward off Ilias's mouse. However, he failed to remember that only the pure of heart can produce a Patronus, and thus, for the first time in history, it was revealed what happens when a competent but unworthy wizard or witch attempts the spell. Maggots shot out of Raczidian's wand and quickly devoured him, as they engulfed his entire body. As we can clearly see, Raczidian, who was massively magically talented, was simply not able to produce the Patronus charm properly because he was not pure of heart. Why he even attempted to cast it in the first place is a little unclear, as he was not faced with dementors. He seemed to cast it because he wanted to ward off Ilias's mouse, Patronus, but I don't think it can be used for that. He simply didn't understand what the spell represented, and he was unable to understand because he was a dark and evil wizard. Where a normal witch or wizard could expect to be introduced to their spirit animal when casting the spell for the first time, Raczidian was met with maggots. Not only that, but they were maggots that devoured him, engulfing his body. On this fateful day, Raczidian set the precedent for what will happen if you try to produce a Patronus when you are emotionally and ethically unable. This is the same reason that many infamous dark witches and wizards don't know how to produce one. Voldemort, Bellatrix, and Dolohov, none of them could do it, no matter how talented they were. However, one thing that I'm curious about is whether or not maggots were unique to Raczidian. If another dark witch or wizard tried to produce the same spell, would they be met with maggots as well? Or would they be on the receiving end of some other unfavorable result? It's hard to say because, understandably, no other witch or wizard in history attempted it after him. He had made it very clear, if you're evil, you can't do it. I like to imagine that maggots were unique to Raczidian. It was a true representation of the type of person that he was. And that's it for this video. What's your Patronus animal? Let me know down in the comment section below. Until next time, you're a wizard, Harry.